welcome to this week's episode of Taboo Tuesday. I'm super excited for this episode. I've had a lot of conversations about this topic. I'm here with my friend Tianna. She's a fellow yoga teacher that I met at a yoga class, taking a class from her. Was that last year?
Yes.
Yeah, wow, it's been so long. What a year. Anyways, Tianna, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit more?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tianna Christine, and I primarily focus on corporate yoga and private yoga. I have been teaching throughout the DMV area and then also have recently picked up meditation training.
So excited for that. I'm also looking to be around. I've actually just started teaching meditation. Yeah, all good stuff. So we've been talking about several different ideas for topics, but Tianna wanted to talk about the whole concept of putting a teacher on a pedestal, specifically a yoga teacher. I know when I was earlier on as a yoga student, I would often look up to my teachers so much and admire, like, want to do what they could do and want to believe what they could believe and want to, just like be exactly like them. And as you might imagine, that is sometimes and quite often problematic.
Right.
So what is interesting to you about this whole concept of putting a teacher on a pedestal?
I think we all do that in general, right? We sort of kind of fan out for our teachers, and we have those teachers that we follow. Like, no matter what they are doing, we're there, and we support them. But that can be problematic because eventually we don't have our own way of seeing things or doing things. Even with ourselves, we have teachers that we look up to, and we might start to talk like them or act like them, and we're still kind of being them and not really being us. So that can be extremely problematic.
Yeah. And I think, like, as a teacher, that makes me think about a concept that I've been thinking about as far as influencing. Because I remember in my teacher training, we had a whole conversation on, like, okay, how do you handle people looking up to you like that? And what
Hmm.
responsibility does or doesn't that concept hold? So as a teacher, I've been really, really thinking about how am I trying to influence people and why is that?
Right.
Um, and that's, I'll probably be thinking about that my entire life. Do you have any stories, either as a teacher or a student, of either being in the student's perspective, looking up to somebody, or being in the teacher's perspective, having somebody look up to you, and maybe share how that felt?
Well, let's see. I'll share one of each. So, one, me being a student, right, looking up to my teacher, I felt like it's especially one that she always teaches at Lululemon. She's an ambassador for Lululemon, and I just love the way she taught. Like, she taught a lot of community based, and even in the postures, the way she got you in the posture, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm doing this posture like this, and I sort of kind of mimicked some of those things in the beginning where it was like, oh, I want to kind of be like how she is. And like she just seemed so put together, the way she did her flows and just the way she spoke. And I thought that, like, okay, as I started getting more comfortable teaching and finding my voice, I really didn't follow what she did. Like, certain flows and certain cueings, I did really enjoy that, but not really all of the other things because I had to put my own spin on it. And I guess for me, being a teacher and having people look up to me, they're like, you know everything, you're the greatest. Like, I follow everything you do. And I'm just, one, just in awe, like, that someone is even doing that because it's like, I am just a regular person. So that's still weird. But I try to make people like I'm not perfect. I don't have the most flexible body. I can't do all the postures that I've seen people do on Instagram. So I try to make it where people don't feel like I am up here somewhere in the clouds.
Yeah, I feel the same way as a teacher. And I think actually last weekend, one of my friends was telling me about studying moss. And then I was on a hike and I sent her this message that's like, wow, like I'm noticing moss and it's so fascinating. And how she responded was, I'm so glad I sparked your curiosity. And I think as a teacher, one thing that I like to do is try to spark people's curiosity about movement and about their bodies and about how they feel. I imagine that you probably do the similar thing. Because I think, and maybe this is a little bit of a tangent, but at least as a student, when I find that a teacher is helping me spark my own curiosity rather than telling me like you have to learn X, Y, Z,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the idea of like planting a seed in somebody's head and them being convinced it's their own idea, right?
Right.
It's like helping people learn how to use the tools and be creative, and maybe not just monkey see, monkey do.
Exactly. We don't want our students to be robots and just like, I do this, you do not. No. And even in some of my flows, I'm like, have fun with it. Do what you want to do, and make it your own because the way I'm teaching may not be the right way. And that's one thing that I like about different vinyasa classes and not like a basic, like if it's a Bikram or if it's an Ashtanga, it's the same postures. And I mean, yes, a teacher can put their own flair on it, but when you have a hatha, a vinyasa, you're going to do different things and you go because of that teacher. So one teacher does not fit all. And I strongly believe that. And I may not be the right person for everyone, and that's okay. Like, I am not everyone, for everyone, but I am for someone, and that's all that I care about. So I definitely understand what you're saying. I want to make sure that they're enjoying themselves. I give them enough and then I make it fun. Like, for example, if you say, hey, we're going to go into this pose, feel free if you'd like to take it up, bind, do whatever, do your own thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, and giving people options. And I remember one thing as a student that I learned when I was taking my teacher training. I don't know, I have a background in dance. I always wanted to like, I felt like I needed to prove something in my classes, so I would try to have like the deepest warrior two, like with always 90 degrees, and like I would look around the room and I'm like, ooh, like I'm deeper than other people, like that means I'm better, and like my ego was just like, doing all these things. And when I realized like the benefits of maybe not doing a pose so extremely all the time, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe the benefits of there was a great time where I was in a class and the teacher cued to use a block, and I was like, I don't need a block, I'm better than that. And she had to cue it like 5 times, and eventually she was like, if you're not using a block, please use a block anyways, even if you think you don't need it. And then finally I grabbed my block and I used it, and I was like, wow, this is really nice. And
Right.
just like, I don't know, I think like our egos get the best of us sometimes in class. And then another big learning moment for me, first as a student and then as a teacher, is understanding that you don't have to do what the teacher says. And I think like it took me a long time. Actually, I pushed myself so hard that I was in pain, so I actually couldn't do some of the things that the teacher said, and I had to learn how to alter classes to protect my forearms. Um, and then as a teacher, I started to learn how many times you have to remind people that they don't have to do, like that their other movements are welcome, I guess, just exactly like what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I loved what you said about I'm not the teacher for everyone, because that's so true. Like, if you don't like somebody's class, there's so many other teachers out there.
Exactly.
And I think also that takes a humbleness as a teacher, that like not everybody has to work with me, not everybody should work with me,
Right.
because maybe somebody would resonate with your classes way more than mine, and I'd be happy that they're moving and learning about their bodies with somebody else.
Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. And coming back to, I guess, the point that you said about being the student and not doing it full on, right? Because a lot of times, even with us as teachers, we want to show the pose full on. We're demoing and we want to do the full pose. And we might say, grab a block. You can grab a block for this pose, but we don't actually grab a block for the pose. So
Mm,
then the people that are actually taking our class, our students, are not going to grab a block because we didn't grab one. And we're sitting here and we just want to, show the pose, but then sometimes our ego gets the best of us when we're even teaching and we want to show off. And now our students are going to injure themselves because they're not trying to listen to their body. They want to do what we're doing. And I actually saw something about that in a Facebook group, and they were saying, teachers like, hey, let's back off of trying to do all of the poses so full because we're not trying to prove anything. We're the teacher. We know that we can do the postures. It's about making sure that our students are safe. And that really hit me, and I'm like, okay, all right, I got to make sure that I'm being mindful of that because a lot of times you're like, hey, bind, let's do crow, and our students aren't there. So giving them that opportunity to take child's pose if you need it. And a lot of times I've been cueing child's pose, not even give yourself the opportunity to take it. No, I'm going to cue it because you might need to take a break. And sometimes I need to take a break.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more with that. I think riffing off that exact topic, I remember in my teacher training we talked about the language you use when you give options, and they talked about like never call something like, I don't know, try to share all the options in a pose. Like, right, you can do plank on your knees, you can do plank on your forearms. And that was another big learning for me, like, again, trying to like be better than other people in class. It's like one option or another option both have great pros, right? They like maybe going down on your knees helps you focus on another muscle, or maybe taking child's pose instead of crow pose allows you to connect to your breath again. And I think going off that, we all have different bodies, right? Which is amazing. Yeah. And we all have slightly different bone lengths. Maybe one person has a larger torso or a shorter torso. And I find lately, I've found one thing that I'm cueing a lot for my students is keep your attention on yourself. There's no need to look around the room. I remind them there's no need to look at me. I will let you know if you're on the wrong side. I'll let you know if you're doing something weird. Like, that's what I'm here for. Because we've all seen, right, like people in downward dog trying to like crank their neck up to like look at the teacher. And you're like, you don't need to do that.
Yes. So in my teacher training, it was called stealing the other person's yoga. Like, I don't want to steal your yoga because you're like, you're trying not to look, but you're like looking. And I mean, we compare ourselves all day long, right? And that's why yoga is a practice. It's not a perfect. And I say that all the time in my classes because people are trying to get it perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to look like mine. It's going to look like yours. And that's like the biggest thing that I try to teach people. And a couple of my students have gotten it where they even repeat that back to me like it's a practice. So I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm touching a few people. At least it's hitting home with a couple people. And that's cool.
Yeah, I love how succinct that is too. Like, it's a practice, not a perfect. I think, yeah, it reminds me of like giving advice to friends, and then the friends give you your own advice and you're like, wow, that's amazing. And they're like, those are your words. And you're like, oh.
Right.
It's like once, and like, I think that comes back to the whole idea of like students are teachers, our students are teachers. Because for me, like learning how to teach has helped me learn how to be a student, and vice versa. And when you have teachers, remembering that your teachers are also students and probably have maybe like when you have like a stupid question or something, right. Like maybe they had that question 10 years ago. Maybe they had it 1 year ago. Like, who knows?
Exactly. We're all students. I totally agree.
Yeah. And then realizing, I don't know, I'm curious as a teacher if you've had students come up to you and ask you questions that you don't know how to answer. How has that been?
Oh, of course, definitely. Especially when it comes to different injuries. And they're like, well, what should I do about this? And I had neck surgery and I had this. And you're like, I never got that before, And a lot of times if there's different injuries or different illnesses, I would just come out and say, well, what is that? Tell me about that because I have no idea. And then I'll say, okay, I'll look it up, and when you come back to class next time, I'll have the answer. But I do not try to say that I know all the answers because I definitely don't.
Yeah, yeah. I think like if one like if I were ever to have a teacher that tells me they know everything, I would be like, maybe I don't want to work with them much more anymore.
Exactly.
Um, like the whole concept of like the more you know, the more you realize you know nothing.
Yep, exactly.
um, yeah, yeah, definitely. It makes me excited to keep on learning as a teacher.
And being home in COVID, oh my gosh, I've been just drowning in knowledge. I've been doing so many different classes and trainings because it's like, all right, well, I'm home. Let me take advantage.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Me too. I have like a running list of like trainings I want to take, and I'm like, I can't take them all at once. And like, ooh, I think another idea that I've been sitting on with like the whole learning and being a student side of things.
Mhm.
I went on a long solo hike last weekend,
Ooh.
and I realized that as somebody who's sometimes maybe too jazzed about learning, I don't always give myself time to process what I'm learning.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, I don't know, just something to think about both as students and teachers.
Guilty as well. I've been doing, like I said, a lot of different things this month. Meditation, prenatal, and it's trying to just drink from a fire hose, and you don't get that time to really sit with it and, really refine it because once it's kind of like the doctor approach, the surgeon approach, it's see one, do one, teach one, right? So you don't really give yourself that time to see it and then do it and then be able to teach it. You just go from seeing it to teaching it, and that's not how it works. You have to be a student a little bit longer before you can then be the teacher.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that is so true. It also reminds me of like when I was first starting teaching, I was really, really nervous about it. Like, wow, people are trusting me to tell them what to do with their bodies. And earlier on in my teaching experience, one of my other teacher friends, Kasha, she was teaching a workshop, and we were like just like talking about stuff, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I know about this. I don't know about that." And she was like, like often teachers just have to be one chapter ahead of students.
That's a good idea. I like that. Yeah, no, that's true. You're like, okay, let me study up. And I mean, even sometimes before certain classes, right? I might go online, get some inspiration for classes and look at videos and then learn like, oh, okay, I think I like this, right? And you just kind of like, all right, let me try it out, see how that feels. And then you're like, all right, I think I can do that. That's probably that one chapter ahead, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I'm always shocked at how quickly 15 minutes can go past. I know, right? It's like we just started talking. Yeah, so do you have anything else you want to share as far as how people can maybe stay in touch with you if they would like to?
Yes, so you can reach me on Instagram, Tianna Christine, on my website, Tianna Christine. YouTube is Yoga with Tianna. I am doing a 30-day yoga challenge, so that is in progress right now. And it's a mantra challenge as well, so every day is a new mantra, as well as about 20-minute flow.
Oh, yes. Ah, that reminds me of when I took your class. One of the things that has really stuck in my mind is the little intention cards that you had. She had us pick each a little card, and they were just like nice words like patience or focus or creativity. And I actually I'm thinking of doing something with that one day in my teaching. So thank you for
Oh,
being a great teacher.
yes. And in my stories, I still pick an intention card every day. So I share the intention card in my story every day.
Yes, and I still appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. That's
All
cool.
right. Yes. So another great thing. one thing that I'm trying to get better at as a student is thanking my teachers and letting them know how they've influenced me. Because we've all had those times where somebody says like, oh, you influenced me in this way, and you're like, what? I don't know. I think it's really cool, and I'm trying to like do that more.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you so much for being here on Taboo Tuesday. You guys on the other side of the screen, if you are interested in discussing a taboo topic, suggesting a taboo topic, I love chatting about this stuff. I have episodes coming up about addiction, about money, because money is a big taboo. And some other ones that I'm going to leave hanging out there. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.